Everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most heavily debated topics in the modern working world, the 4-day workweek. You know the hype, right? You've seen the headlines and the viral posts promising you can get all your work done by Thursday afternoon and just enjoy a permanent 3-day weekend. But what actually happens when this unstoppable, highly anticipated trend meets the very immovable reality of a demanding, client-facing service business? Well, today we're unpacking a really fascinating, data-rich, 6-month experiment by a B2B agency that actually dared to try it. And honestly, as we're about to see, the results were a total roller coaster.
So let's just get right into it. The author of our source material, an agency leader, kicks things off with a totally unfiltered confession. They write, "I was a true believer, I was wrong." This isn't some hot take from a skeptic who wanted the 4-day workweek to fail. No, this is from a leader who was totally all in on the movement, someone who really wanted to build a future-forward business. It's such a captivating setup. I mean, how does something that sounds so inherently good end up forcing a leader to admit they were completely wrong?
Section 1. The hype and the experiment.
To understand how they got to that confession, we really have to look at the environment that convinced them to take the leap in the first place. Because there is a massive contrast between the global hype and their agency reality. The promise was just irresistible. You had massive players like Microsoft Japan reporting a staggering 40% boost in productivity. You had entire national trials in Iceland being branded as an overwhelming success. The narrative was basically, you get happier employees, better attention, and identical, if not better, output. But counter to that is the reality of testing this heavily publicized model on a B2B service business. A business where your schedule inherently relies on the very unpredictable needs and emergencies of external clients.
So they set up a simple 6-month trial. Monday through Thursday were full working days. But on Friday, the office was totally closed. No emails, no calls, same salary. Let's walk through this timeline. Look at month 1. It felt amazing. Morale hit an all-time high. Slack channels quieted down, but not from laziness. It was because meetings were laser-focused and the team was just energized. It honestly looked like the hype was real. But then we hit month 3, and the structural cracks start showing. The euphoria kind of wore off as the operational realities of a missing Friday set in. And by month 6, the trial concluded with a very hard, very undeniable lesson.
Section 2. The shocking data.
You see, this wasn't just a gut feeling. They meticulously tracked their metrics. And the numbers showed this massive, glaring disconnect between the internal vibe of the team and the external health of the business. Take a close look at the bottom row first. Employee self-reported well-being skyrocketed from 7.2 to a fantastic 8.5 out of 10. That's an 18% increase. If you only looked at that, you'd call it a massive win, for sure. But look at the metrics right above it. Urgent client response time went from 4.2 hours to 7.8 hours. That is 85% slower. Literally almost double the wait time. Client satisfaction scores dropped 11%. Same-day fixes fell by 16%. Internally, the business was absolutely thriving, but externally, it was bleeding.
It essentially boils down to this. The team was happier, but the clients were absolutely feeling the impact. This was the painful realization the agency had to confront. Yes, they had successfully built a thriving internal culture, but they had done it by inadvertently sacrificing the absolute most vital component of a service business, the client experience.
Section 3. The client's reality.
To truly grasp why those metrics plummeted, we need to step out of the agency's quiet 4-day week bubble. The leader started doing more frequent one-on-one check-ins, and clients were saying things like, "I love working with your team, but sometimes I feel like I'm waiting until Monday to get a simple yes or no." It wasn't outright hostility right out of the gate. It was more like this subtle, creeping friction. Clients were feeling stranded. When a critical question popped up on a Thursday afternoon, that rigid Friday closure meant the client was just left hanging in suspense for 3 whole days, just for a basic answer.
And then that subtle friction escalated into this. We're considering moving to an agency that's more responsive. The author actually describes this feedback as a literal punch to the stomach. This wasn't just a minor complaint anymore. This was a direct threat to the agency's survival. Their clients were not on a 4-day workweek. Their clients' customers weren't either. While the agency team was enjoying a really lovely 3-day weekend, their clients were sweating through Monday morning emergencies, maybe a server on fire that had been sitting entirely unread since Thursday.
So let's break down exactly why this clash occurred. The core problem definitely wasn't that the team was lazy. They were working incredibly hard during their 4 days, but the compressed schedule created a really dangerous gap. First off, urgent issues don't follow calendars. A server outage simply does not care that it's your Friday off. Second, global clients work across totally different time zones. The agency's closed Friday was often someone else's absolute peak business day. And third, in a B2B setting, trust is built on availability. It doesn't mean 24/7 availability, but it does require predictable, consistent responsiveness.
Section 4. Building a flexible solution. Facing the potential loss of major clients, the agency didn't just abandon their goal of work-life balance. They adapted. Instead of a hard shutdown on Fridays, they introduced this flexible 5-day structure. Step 1. Core working hours from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. Step 2. Implementing 2-hour uninterrupted deep work blocks for complex tasks. Step 3. Friday became a no-meeting day to preserve focus, but the team remained fully available for clients. And Step 4. They created rotating on-call rosters so emergencies were always covered without burning out the whole team. It was honestly a masterclass in balancing internal focus with external accessibility. But just rolling out a new internal structure wasn't going to be enough. They had to actively repair the damage done. So they implemented a written client promise. All client messages will receive an acknowledgement within 2 hours during business hours. Critical issues will be triaged immediately, regardless of the day. This was genius. By making a crystal-clear, written commitment to responsiveness, they immediately started rebuilding that shattered client trust. Clients suddenly knew exactly what to expect and, more importantly, exactly when to expect it.
To make this new flexible system actually work without exhausting the staff, they had to heavily invest in asynchronous workflows. They replaced unnecessary meetings with detailed Loom videos. They created comprehensive documentation to eliminate all those highly disruptive quick calls. And they built automated status dashboards. This meant clients had real-time visibility into their projects without constantly having to wait for a human to reply. The team maintained their autonomy and their focus, but clients were never left in the dark.
Section 5. Results and Lessons.
So, the big question, did this flexible pivot actually work? Well, they ran this new model for another 6 months and rigorously remeasured all their data. Let's start with the most vital metric for any service business out there: client retention. Under the new flexible 5-day model, their retention rate hit a phenomenal 94%. That is an 8% jump from where they were during the rigid 4-day trial. They successfully pulled themselves out of a nosedive, proving that their pivot didn't just stop the bleeding, it actually strengthened their client relationships. And check out these response times. Bar 1 is their baseline before any trials, 4.2 hours. Bar 2 is that disastrous 4-day trial, peaking at 7.8 hours. But look at Bar 3. Under the flexible 5-day model, response time absolutely plummeted to just 3.2 hours. That is a dramatic 59% drop from the trial, beating even their original baseline metrics. Plus, client satisfaction shot up by 15%, while employee well-being remained highly sustainable at 8.2 out of 10. Win-win.
So, what should you really take away from all this? The source gives us these very clear do's and don'ts. On the do this side, test before you commit fully. Track your client metrics just as closely as your internal ones, and build in flexibility for emergencies. Now, on the avoid this side, you need to be super careful. Never assume a one-size-fits-all approach works just because you saw it in a catchy headline. Don't fall into the trap of only measuring employee satisfaction, and absolutely avoid creating rigid, inaccessible structures in a client-facing industry. A B2B service agency requires serious customization.
Which brings us to the core thesis of this entire explainer. A happy team is important, but a happy team with no clients isn't a business. The 4-day week isn't dead by any means. It might be totally amazing for internal product teams. But for service providers, the future of work requires intelligently designing structures around both employee well-being and rock-solid client trust. Because ultimately, the absolute best perk you can offer your employees is a stable, growing business.
I want to leave you with a question drawn straight from our source material today. Have you tried a 4-day workweek in a client-facing role? Did it work? What kind of adaptations did you have to make? Take a moment to reflect on your own operations and how you balance internal happiness with external client demands. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and we'll see you next time.